Everyone, Eric here. I had a video request to talk about NI tertiary functions. Now, first you might ask, what is a tertiary function? It's basically a complicated name that means it's your third cognitive function off the Myers-Briggs typology list. One moment. I'm on my way to the store. Had to go shopping, so figured what better time to make a video than whenever it's beautiful out, right? That being said, let me put up all the windows so that there's no background noise. That being said, I wanted to go live and make the video now so I can maybe upload 2 today if I get enough requests. So, NI tertiary function is the video request, but the tertiary function is the third cognitive function, and it is actually, it doesn't start developing fully until around mid-20s, give or take, in a person. So to kind of give you an understanding of how it really plays a role in a person's development, INFJs generally don't really use their TI growing up. They're very empathetic people. They don't know why they are feeling the way that they're feeling, but their emotions are always all over the place, and they're thought to be bipolar or have high functioning autism or manic depression. And in my case, my mom put me on medicine to help stabilize my moods. That wasn't really a problem. It was just learning about myself, but she didn't know. So for an INFJ, it would mean we have intuition running in the background and we're still growing, so it's not really something we're aware of until our TI starts kicking in. But we just know things about people, and we're very empathetic, and we want to connect with people. Our 2 predominant, I'm not saying TI doesn't exist, I'm saying it doesn't really fully develop until like the early to mid-20s. And I'm 24, so that explains why now I'm able to make these YouTube videos and I just understand things. The understanding came after the full development of my TI. So yeah, I'm not saying we're mindless people, I'm just saying that we prefer predominantly to think with our NI and FE from a young age. So in the case of an ISFP who requested I make this video, NI tertiary, how does that play in? If it's the third cognitive function, it has a role, right? The answer is yes. So I'm not going to cover the cognitive stacks of an ISFP. I'm just going to talk about the tertiary function NI. Now, it's important to note NI is running in the background as a tertiary function. It's not only is it running in the background, but the I'll just say ISFP in this case, the individual, but the ISFP isn't quite aware of their NI, or they don't really recognize that it even exists from a young age. And it's not until, I'm assuming this is just intuitive numbers, just throwing out numbers of what feels right, my gut feeling, my NI speaking. I would say it isn't until maybe the age of 12, possibly 10 at the, or 9 at the absolute earliest, but that's like someone who's a genius and incredibly self-aware. I would say 10 or 11 would be a good medium to throw out. Geez, you people have got to let me over. What is with traffic today? So yeah, the NI tertiary function, I would say from like 10 or 11, give or take. They start becoming conscious of something. Can't quite put their finger on it, but they're starting to get a sense of things without really thinking about what they're thinking about. It's like they just kind of feel like they're learning something, but they don't really know what. So in this case, NI running in the background is more or less gathering the information from things that they feel, or in the ISFP's case, their FI being their predominant, how they personally feel helps them or allows them to approach the world based on how they're feeling. And at this point, they begin learning and developing, being affected by their surroundings, and they become conscious as a person of, hey, mom and dad aren't just like raising me. They're actually people. And it is this, and not just that, but like teachers. Hey, you know, I thought that they were really nice at the age of 7. My first grade teacher is my friend, but then you get older and you start becoming more self-aware and aware of your surroundings. And at this point, I'm assuming, don't take it as 100% fact. There's probably a statistic about it, but I'm just going to say, to help you understand how NI, I'm not saying this is 100% true, I'm saying to help you understand how the NI would actually start functioning. The person would become self-aware and start realizing things around them aren't as they exactly thought it was, and then they can't quite put their finger on it, because an ISFP's last cognitive function being TI means that they're not one to think logically. They kind of prefer to just let things play out and go in the flow with the moment. Yeah, kind of like an extrovert's general mentality is live in the moment. That's kind of the ISFP's thing, even though they're an introvert. They kind of share that. They share that same basic vibe about them. So that means that their TI is that gut feeling that feeds them information and helps them to understand things. And that means that they don't quite understand what's actually happening. Now, the fourth function, not tertiary, but the fourth function doesn't fully develop until mid-30s to 40s. So that's a long way off. So as soon as the NI tertiary starts forming, the person's not really, how do I say this? They have their TI, but it's really their absolute weakest function, and it's not really developed at that point. So they have this gut feeling that they just start feeling like they understand and know things. And as they continue walking in life, NI tertiary continues as a background function until the ISFP learns to actively engage it. When they learn to actively engage their TI, it becomes their predominant thinking function. And it goes back to how they feel about themselves and their sensory functions, and it helps them to figure out how they're feeling about a situation in order to act on that situation and come to a response, rather than thinking logically. If they feel like I should go outside today because their NI is telling them you need exercise, they don't really think about it, they just feel like exercising, so they exercise. In the in the ISFP's case, that's really how it would play out. Is they feel like doing something, seems like a good idea, let's do it. They live in the moment. They're very act now, think later. Keep vocabulary. You don't need a huge vocabulary to have fun and live out your life. So, okay, sure, yeah, man, that's fine. Is a decent response for an ISFP to them. That means, yeah, all right, cool, let's do it. They're not prone to saying a lot because they just don't really see a need to. You know, it's not like they're thinking about it. They just feel like, cool, let's do it. So they're pretty much laid back. If you can think of a surfer who's an introvert and doesn't mind hanging around crowds, that's pretty much an ISFP in a nutshell. They're very laid back, kind of go with the flow. Yeah, sure, why not? I mean, if they're not feeling up to something, they won't do it. But they're very free-spirited and literally like a surfer on the waves. Just go with the flow, man. Just ride the waves. Let it all hang out. In terms of like their hair, just let it go. Forget about life and just love the waves, man. Learn to live with the ocean, be one with the ocean, man. They're just caught up in their sensory feelings of how they feel about a situation, and they like it. So it's not really the NI tertiary for the ISFP. And I can't speak for other personality types. It might be a little bit different depending on their cognitive stacks. But for the ISFP, it's really something that they don't have to worry about. It just kind of works out itself because they're focused on their sensory figures and how they feel about a situation. So when their tertiary NI starts kicking in, it's more or less a supplement to their already jubilant life, very free-spirited life. It's more or less a way to help you. As you learn, you have to figure things out. It's a way to figure things out without really having to devote a lot of energy into it. And I think that's awesome. For an ISFP to be able to live that way, really free-spirited, I think that's pretty awesome. So again, they can learn to actively engage it, but as a tertiary function, it's really not something that they look to on a constant basis until they get older. When they get older, it becomes a lot more active. Much like the TI for an INFJ, they start analyzing their intuition a lot more and become incredibly insightful and wise individuals. So hopefully that helped to answer your question. Let me know what you want me to talk about next in the descriptions and comments.